Good afternoon, everyone. Mary Sloan with another episode of Inspirational Influencer News, People Making a Difference. And this afternoon, my guest is Paul Conley, who is certainly someone who is making a difference. Paul tells me he was from Ohio, but decided to ditch the cold for the beautiful Tampa weather, showing he's already a really smart guy. Just my personal opinion. He and his fiancee, Jenna, recently bought a house in Tampa Palm, and they have a 1-year-old golden retriever, Champ. Paul loves sports and has loved them ever since he was a child. He typically spends his time playing, watching sports, running, working out, spending time with his family and friends, or reading and learning. He absolutely loves podcasts so much that he started his own earlier this year. So you didn't tell me in here. What's the name of your podcast?
Life Work Balance Podcast.
Life Work Balance. Perfect. So Paul has worked with YMCA in various roles and has been the executive director at a YMCA since 2016, where he specializes in leadership, fundraising, and helping people reach their true potential. There's nothing better than when he helps a client unlock the person they were put on this earth to be, and along the way takes complete control of their freedom, money, and purpose. I certainly agree with that. So Paul, what is the one thing that you want to make sure we all learn from you during this show?
I think the number one thing and the most important thing, it's why we have the Life Work Balance podcast, it's why I started Life Work Balance Coaching, is when you put your life first, your work and your results within your work will grow. And it's because you're able to be healthier, happier, more passionate about what you're doing. And what that allows for is greater results, allowing you to grow your career.
That's really interesting. I think so many people have it backwards. They think, well, money's important to me, so I should put my career first or something like that. So do you find a lot of resistance to people as you talk about that, or do they kind of get it?
It depends. I'd say it's probably about 50-50. I think that there is a lot of resistance because there's so many that say, you have to work yourself into the ground to get ahead. And, there's that culture of if you want better results, work hard. Well, that only works to a certain extent. And, the biggest misnomer is you still have to provide great results. You have to do great things, but the methodology behind what I do is, we put life first. So that means your health, your family, your relationships, making sure that your sleep, making sure that you're the best you can be, so that you can then deliver the best results, not work as hard as possible to attempt to try to deliver the best results.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so how else do you help people?
So what I do is I work with individuals one-on-one through one-on-one coaching, and I help people really identify what it is they're put on this earth to do. So to me, the reason why most people burn out and struggle is because they're not fulfilling their potential. A lot of times we kind of get into the roller coaster of life, and we go to school and we graduate from college and we get a good job. And then we get to a point where, well, okay, I'm in a position where I don't want to take a risk anymore. And it's not for everybody, but what happens is if you're years and years away from retirement, you're starting to look at that countdown, and it's years and years. You're really holding yourself back. And really, when you're not living in your potential, it takes away happiness, and it takes away what you can truly provide to this world.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've had a couple of different guests on here who have talked about helping people in the workplace who wanted to have an escape plan or wanted to escape. And so they were helping people in different ways to get a business that they loved, kind of started on the side. So they had something to kind of look forward to. But you're taking a very different position as I hear it, which says really you can be happy just where you are doing exactly what you're doing now. If you just look at it through the lens of it's my life.
Yeah, and I would say that the vehicle to get where you want to go is ever changing. So for some, it is starting a side business and a scalable side business if they can move to a full-time to supplement their full-time income. For some, it's okay, where are you at now? What do we need to shift? Why did you love this in the begin with? One of the things that's I find very interesting about the Great Resignation that gets a lot of news coverage is so many of those people resign to another job and then they're right back to where they were 6 or 8 months down the road because they didn't fix the root problem. They just decided to take care of the current symptoms and move to a different role, and they're going to have the same problems 6 months, 8 months, 10, 12 months down the road. So that's what we try to do. I try to work with people to fix the root problem and then identify the vehicle for solution. And reality is you have to have money to survive in this world. So, but the way to access that is there's a million ways to do it. And to me, when you're able to grow true wealth, when you're able to follow your passion.
Yeah, the Great Resignation, it's interesting because that's sort of like the people that get divorced and then they marry their spouse all over again. And they get divorced again, and then they marry their spouse all over again. Even if the spouse changes name along the way. And it's because they haven't worked on the root problem, which is usually something to do with them. Oh no,
Yeah,
not me.
for sure. And I think the biggest key is your life is so much better when you enjoy what you do. We're at work 40 plus hours a week. You want to be able to enjoy it. You want to be able to bring joy into the day, not when I get to this point, that's when I'll be happy, because you'll get to that point and you won't even know how to be happy at that point.
Yeah, and I think that it really has to start with your attitude. You can be happy wherever you are doing whatever you want if your attitude says I can be happy wherever I am doing whatever I want. And if you can't see that, then you struggle.
Yeah, without question. And I think that for most people, that there's this joy that's coming down the road, and we delay joy and happiness now for future joy. I mean, that's the concept of, work really hard and then you get to enjoy your golden years. Well, my experience is that when you get there, sometimes there's health issues. Sometimes you kind of forgot, you don't have the hobbies. You don't have the things along the way that make life fun when you get to the golden age. So, that's always the interesting one when people say, and it's amazing that the way some people view it, they'll, I had somebody I was talking with that they're like, I just got to get through the next 13 years. And I don't know. I just don't believe we should be getting through our one life in this world.
Yeah, it was pretty common, maybe not so much now, but back as I was growing up, for people to, really work hard, super, super, super hard for the first 50, 55 years of their life. And then they realized, oh, well, I worked really hard for the first 55 years and I didn't take any time off and I didn't really live very well. And now I'm going to spend the next years of my life paying to try and get well again and trying to have the life that I didn't bother having when I was in a position to have it. So it's sort of like, I made money in the first half and now I'm going to spend it all trying to get well again. That's real
Yeah.
sad.
Well, and I think that there's our podcast, we've had a number of guests on that have tried that approach. And what ends up normally happening is they may even have a tremendous amount of success in their career. I mean, that talented people can achieve great results regardless of how they do it. But what so many of our guests told us was, I was achieving professional success, but my health was a mess. I wasn't happy. My family situation, I really didn't get to even be with my kids. You mentioned divorce. Divorce is prevalent in a lot of this, and it's just avoidable. And then you realize, well, okay, sometimes the harder we work is we're trying to find a solution. We just think and that's how we're taught as kids, work harder, practice makes perfect. The reality is that's not the case. You do have to get results. You do have to put in levels of work using your talents, however, though. That's where some people get messed up, is they try to work really hard at something that they're just not very good at. If you find something that you're good at, you're passionate about it, then the work isn't that hard. You're using your natural abilities to benefit the world.
Well, and I think that can be a real problem too, because if you've sort of risen to a position in a job that you're really not good at, it's a real problem because you're afraid to say, well, I'd like a different position, or you get afraid of, oh, I'm going to lose this and I'm going to lose that, without realizing that you created it in the first place. It's really a conversation and you could create it all over again, perhaps in something you really loved, or doing something else. So it seems like it's really sad when people just kind of give up on themselves and say, well, this is it. I'm stuck here. This is all I can do.
Well, and I think that comes down to confidence too. And, I work with primarily younger professionals, and it's amazing how many people 10 years into their career will say, well, I'm already invested in this. I can't take a chance. I can't do something different. And really what it boils down to is there's fear. And the reality is that you can choose to do whatever it is you want to do. Your situation doesn't allow, you're allowed to do it. You just have to decide if it makes sense. And sometimes you are in the best spot you're in. And I think the one thing that I always push back on clients is, they'll say, well, I'm doing this for my family. I'm working this job or doing this line of work because I have to provide for my family. And otherwise, I might not be able to put food on the table. And while that's true in some cases, in a lot of cases, the real reality is that they would find something else that they might enjoy more, and then be a better parent, better spouse, be able to provide better for their family, both not only financially, but emotionally and being present.
Yeah, I mean, fear stalks us, and fear is such a big problem for everybody. We make it up in our head, and then we become terrified of it, without realizing that we told ourselves the story first, and then we got scared of the story that we invented because nobody said that was how it was going. It's like, this is not written anywhere. There's no book of knowledge that says this is what's going to happen. You just made it all up, and you could make up another story and live into that one. And we just don't really understand how wonderful wonderfully crafted we are, I guess, when you realize that it's all available to us. We invent a new story and live into that.
Yeah, I think you hit on something so important there. The stories and lies we tell ourselves can be just detrimental to our overall success. We'll make up things that aren't even close to true, never end up being what actually happens. And what it does is it prevents us from the reality of what could be. So I always say too, if the statement you're saying is what if it starts with what if, then you have to think about all possibilities. What if I don't like this change in the way I work or my job or my income? What if I lose everything if I do this? Okay, that's a possibility because we have an unknown. But on the reverse, you have to say, what if this goes really well? What if I succeed better than I ever could have imagined? You know, we're doing this interview today, and coming into the interview, we could have both been sitting there telling ourselves, nobody's going to like this video. It's going to be terrible, all of it. But in that, if we say that to ourselves, we didn't, by the way.
No, we didn't.
You have to present the other one. What if this helps millions of people? Who knows?
Well, and you never know. When you say, what if this helps millions of people? It's like, what if this helps one person? You know, it's not that we have to help millions of people. It's like, if you can help one person lead a happier life, or lead a more fulfilled life, or lead a life that they're loving to live as opposed to dreading to live. I mean, you know, you hear the stories of people who hate getting out of bed because the world just feels so unfriendly and hard. And it's like, wow, that's really sad. I mean, I leap out of bed at 5 a.m. without an alarm clock. And it's just because I'm excited to get up and get on with the day, you know? So I guess we're blessed. And, you know, we really can offer that blessing to other people, which is why you have a podcast, which is why I have a show. Someday I'll get around to turning it into a podcast and all those things. But we're willing to get out there. We're willing to present. And I have so enjoyed doing my show, and I'm sure you enjoyed doing your podcast for the same reason. You get all these different perspectives. You get people who are doing such interesting things, and you go, oh, wow, I didn't know that was possible. Wow, I didn't, you know, which is why I entitled my show, People Making a Difference. I get the privilege every other day, you know, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and talking to people who are making a difference. And I just think it's a wonderful way to live, being inspired every day, you know, and you can come watch our show, go listen to a podcast, and get yourself inspired.
Yeah, I think too that you hit on something there. The mindset of all of it is the reality. We can make anything a positive situation. I was just telling somebody the other day, you know, I think one of the silliest things we do in society is get frustrated when we get stuck in traffic. We can't do anything about it. Our frustration and our anger isn't going to make the cars in front of us move. So personally, I have two perspectives on that. Is number one, I always try to show some gratitude that I wasn't in an accident, that I'm not the reason why there's a traffic jam. That's a reality. Most of the time it's a car accident. And then second, you know, I just try to put on a podcast or some music and just try to enjoy that time, because there is no other option. And you have to make the best of the situation that you're in. And I think the other thing too is people are afraid to get help with a skill that they don't have. I think it's interesting that we grow up all through life and we have parents and teachers and coaches and all of these people dedicated to teach us the world. And then we go to college and we get other people to help us. And then once we hit post-college, we really don't have many people helping us through adult life. And that's when it gets significantly harder. And, people, it's whether it's an ego thing or a pride thing. To me, investing in yourself is by far the best thing you can do to grow in whatever way you want to grow.
Well, and it's interesting. And I guess people are finally waking up to it, because the world of coaching, where people are reaching out and saying, hey, I'm not sure I'm, really great at this being a dad thing, or I'm not really sure I'm great at maintaining my house, or I'm not really sure I actually know how to keep my books, or whatever it is, that we dare to reach out and say, hey, I could use some coaching in this area. And, as little kids, we got coaching all the time. And the world recognized that they needed help growing up. Well, we never quit growing up, I don't think, because we never quit learning. It's like you'll never get to the point where you know everything that you'd like to know, or have the answer to everything. So it's great to be able to find other people who are good at what it is that you'd like to learn from. Do you have work-life balance? If not, go talk to Paul and see if he can help you figure out how to get that work-life balance. How do you put your, and it's the same thing, if you want to get more connected to spirit or source or God or whatever your name for it is, there's coaches that can help you do that. And it's a great world that we live in, because coaching is just taking off. And like you say, now maybe the dial is slowly turning, and people will realize that just because they got to be 21 and they got a good job, they don't have to quit learning. As a matter of fact, they shouldn't quit learning. And the more they learn, the better an employee they can be, or the better a boss they can be, or they can rise in the organization by being better. We always want to keep bettering ourselves, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, because those that are successful in their careers or businesses, you look at CEOs, and I think it's 74% of CEOs have worked with a coach. I think that tells me everything I want to know about who should work with coaches. Some people, I think we're starting to get better in this area as a society, of saying, hey, I don't know that. I want to learn from this. And then, you have to be able to do it. You could do everything I teach is learnable through YouTube, through whatever. It's just going to take you a lot longer, because when you focus in on something for a period of time and have somebody hold you accountable and give you different perspectives and challenge you. And normally it's not somebody that's your supervisor or a friend or a spouse, because there's a different relationship that you have with those people. A coach, and my job is to call people on when they're kind of not being the best version of themselves, in a respectful way, because my job is to help them get to where they're going, not stay where they're at.
Yeah, and even to have somebody that cares enough about you and is professionally involved enough to help you go through that, because trying to depend on a friend, well, they may not know what your situation is, and you may not feel even comfortable telling them, because after all, they're a friend. They're not really somebody who is necessarily qualified to help you. So I'm just excited about the whole coaching opportunity that is opening up, because there's so many things that are areas that we just can't know it all.
Well, you know what it comes down to, and I said this already, but it's an accelerant. You can learn. I mean, I could learn to build a house. I'm not a handy guy, but I could learn on YouTube how to build a house. that would take me years and years and years, and a lot of failure and a lot of time, a lot of money. And I would probably not ever be as good as somebody that's been doing it, because I don't have a passion for it and I don't have any prior experience. However, if you work with somebody that can teach you and you put time into it, the results pay for themselves. And I personally believe everybody should work with a coach. It will, and the type is dependent on your person and where you're trying to go. But it's one of the greatest investments we can make in life.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, because there's just so many things. And you can specialize in your coaches too. You may have a coach for this and a coach for that. Oh, well, quite honestly, my golf game would benefit from a coach, because I'm not very good at it. And, I can make a lot of acquaintances that'll benefit me in business on the golf course. It'd be good if I looked like I knew what I was doing when I was out there. And you can also go get somebody who is a coach on helping you, with work-life balance or something. It's great that there's so many coaches that are now available to us in so many things.
To that golf point, I've played golf my whole life and I've always been about average. I went and took one lesson with someone and he told me I wasn't even aiming the club the right way. My club face closed too much. So the most basic thing in golf, I was doing incorrectly, and I've been playing for 20 years at that point. Within 45 minutes, we fixed it and I'm playing significantly better. So it's just, you only know what you know. And sometimes it just helps to have somebody give you a different perspective.
Well, and who knows, maybe 10 years from now, you would have figured that out. Why wait 10 years when 45-minute lesson will take you and go, yep. Oh, why don't you try this? Oh, yep. Why don't you try this?
but the amazing thing about that, and I think the thing that says the most about it's a life, it's a microcosm for life. I was aimed just slightly off. I thought I was doing everything right. And you can think you're doing everything right. And then there's 3 things you need to twitch, or that other people see that you don't see about yourself, that are your blind spots. And if you can eliminate them, it's a game changer.
Well, it's always funny when you think about it, really, and most of us don't, which is why we don't go get coaches. But, golfing is a funny thing. And I learned to play it late in life and did get a coach. But, I've always wondered why we don't go get, let's use golf as an example, a golf coach, when you would never see the top golfers out there without having a coach in the background going, okay, we got to work on that, or we got to, So, it's like if the very best in any industry get coaches, it's sort of puzzling, like, why don't the rest of us get coaches in the same areas?
In almost the elite of the elite, in almost every industry, whether it be business or professional athletes or musicians or what have you, have somebody that they work with. And that, to me, is the very reason, if nothing else, you should put blind faith into working with somebody, because if you want to get to that level, if you don't want to improve your life, then working with somebody is not you. You have to be ready. But if you have big aspirations to improve in life and you want to do it quicker, you can either do it slower or quicker. If you want to do it,
not at all, because oftentimes if you're blind to the things you're blind to, right? So it's sort of like, oh, well, it'll eventually, no, not necessarily.
And you know what? And at the very least, you get pushed out of your comfort zone. And that, for all of us, is where growth happens.
So anyway, sadly, we're coming to the end of our time again. We always have such a good time that time passes really fast. But how can people get hold of you, Paul, if they'd like to learn more? Because certainly getting more work-life balance is important.
Yeah, LinkedIn is the best place, Paul Conley. Just send me a message and be happy to talk with you.
Sounds great. Well, thank you so much. And we'll look forward to seeing you again.
Thanks, Mary.